Hey everyone, Steve here from Big Head Tech, and I do have to apologize. The echo is probably really bad. The lighting's not great. I'm in the process of hopefully moving here soon. My microphone needs new cable. I don't have my lighting, it's all packed away, so my apologies. But today, I have something special. We have the Acer Nitro 5 with the Ryzen 5 4600H. I bought this for, believe it or not, under $600. However, I had a 10% discount from Best Buy for my birthday and a $10 reward, but it's normally $670. And in my opinion, without actually testing it, I believe this is the best laptop for under $700 that was ever made in the history of laptops. And I would challenge you to even find a used one that can actually outrun this. So you would have to upgrade this a little bit, so another 40 bucks, so $710. A used laptop that can actually beat this in every category. I'm gonna say you probably can. But today, let's take a look and see if Acer just made the greatest sub $700 laptop in the world. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 screws. I actually just flipped up from here under the hinge and then worked my way, and I was able to take this off pretty easily. So here we have, I don't know which is which, but it comes equipped with a Ryzen 5 4600H, which is a 6-core, 12-thread CPU, 45-watt TDP, a base clock of around, I think, 3 with a boost clock around 4 on. It can hit down all core. Then we have a GTX 1650 mobile chip with 4 gigs of GDDR6 memory. We have a WD, this is interesting, Western Digital SN530 256 gig NVMe SSD. The memory chip, it comes with one. We are going to actually put more memory in this, and for testing, we are using 16 gigs. But we have here, I want to say this is probably from Michigan. It's a 3200 megahertz 8 gig chip. So it should be able to take up to 32 gigabytes, but I have not confirmed that. Battery-wise, we have, drum roll if I can find it, 48 watt-hour battery, so not the biggest. Do note that if they do make a larger battery for this, it'll probably take place of this 2.5 inch drive. There is an adapter I don't have with me because this is actually for my dad that plugs into here, and then you can plug in a 2.5 inch drive there. But we actually have, sneakily enough, another M.2. This is going to be NVMe as well that goes into here. The screw is already screwed in, ready to go. So perfect there. Then let's take a look at I/O, and I want to actually put this back on because this is important. There has been multiple people that have said this has come DOA. No power, no nothing. On Best Buy's website, it's where I got it from. And we had the same problem until we actually realized that we were doing something wrong. So whenever we plug this in, it would only plug in about there. What we ended up finding out was we had to push all the way in so it's completely flush. Once we did that, boom, we had power. Problem solved. So I'm going to go ahead and get this back together in a minute, but let's go over I/O here. We have a USB Type-C, we have a USB 3 and HDMI out, followed by headphone microphone combo port, 2 more USB 3s, and Ethernet ports, and in the back we have a power port. So there's standard I/O. There is no memory card slot here, unfortunately. This is lighter. I will put down somewhere in here how heavy it is, but it is lighter than my Legion 5. Now for speakers here, these are going to be bottom firing, which is understandable. But let's hear how this sounds. Now we have the Legion 5. definitely doesn't have quite as loud, but I think the sound signature is very similar. And compare it to here. Yeah, it's definitely not as loud. So we'll definitely give the nod to the Legion 5. Now, to do a really quick rundown here, the Acer Nitro 5, like I said, it's a 4600H. We do have 16 gigs of memory for this testing. We have the 1650 4 gig GDDR6. The display looks to be IPS according to Acer's website, but they've actually removed this particular laptop from their website. No information about sRGB coverage. It is 60 hertz, despite Best Buy saying it's 120, and probably about 250 nits brightness. The power brick is 135 watts, and it has the Western Digital SN530 256 gig NVMe SSD, and we paid $670 plus tax, and then $40 additional for the memory, bringing the total to $710. But let's take a look at the benchmarks. Do note these benchmarks are a little bit different than the previous one for the Legion 5, so the FPS could be a little bit lower because I tweaked the benchmarks to what I normally do. They weren't actually set to my standard benchmarks I normally run. First things up is Cinebench. We're going to look at R20 and R15. Now, the Ryzen 5 4600H actually falls right in the middle of the pack. I'm only showing, for the most part, 8-thread CPUs up to 16-thread CPUs, more or less. And when we look at the Ryzen 5 4600H, 3200 in R20. By comparison, a mild OC all-core overclock on 8700K, 700 megahertz faster, a desktop chip. Okay, so this is more or less like an i5 10600K. At 4.7 gigahertz all core, that's going to consume probably in the ballpark of 150 watts. So 3 times the power, scores 9% higher. Let that sink in for a second. A chip that is essentially a modern $275 desktop CPU that consumes as much power as this entire computer with just the CPU alone, scores 9% better in a multi-core workload. Single core workload, yes, 455, that i5 10600K is going to be probably in the 520 to 530 range. But again, this laptop retails for $669.99. Now, that being said, we did test it at about $709.99 with an extra RAM stick that we installed. Do keep that in mind. Now, let's take a look at Blender. I'm using version 2.79. Newer versions are more optimized. Do keep that in mind. Now, the Ryzen 5 4600 was like 5 minutes 41 seconds, so 5.68 minutes, versus an 8700K with a mild overclock. Again, this is essentially an i5 10600K, more or less, and you might be able to get a little bit better all-core overclock. Half a minute quicker. A chip that's going to consume probably close to 150 watts, if you're going to hit that all-core, seeing high 4s, low 5s, is only a half a minute quicker than a laptop CPU. I find that incredible. Just the multi-core workload of this laptop, spec'd at a little over $700 with the extra 8 gigs of memory, can perform that well. Any starting up YouTuber, because I use an 8-core 16-thread, 16-gig laptop for my channel, and it works great. This wouldn't really change my workflow that much because it's the same GPU. That is impressive. Now, games. This is a gaming laptop. This is the Legion 5. I would consider it as an editing laptop able to game. This is a budget gaming laptop. When we compare to a 1650 Super, both these laptops fall behind. So do note that, probably about 10-15% across the board. But what's interesting is, with the exception of one game, and this was repeatable, that's Division 2, they were pretty much identical. This consistently scored 1 FPS higher than this. I don't know why, it just did. Division 2 was 4 FPS difference. But this was 940, this was more or less 710, although I paid like low 604. So when we look at what this can do, Forza Horizon 4, ultra settings, 73 FPS. F1 2018 Ultra settings, 55 FPS. Division 2, high settings, 49 FPS. Ghost Recon Wildlands, very high settings, 47 FPS. That is outstanding for a $670 laptop. I find that absolutely incredible. You can't, in my opinion, find a better all-around system used unless somebody's really desperate. For $710, I think they'll outperform that. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, thermals. I've gone through now 2 laptops with Ryzen 4000 chips that got sent back. One of them did thermals, the other one didn't do great in thermals, but had thermal throttling elsewhere. This laptop, 82 degrees max on the CPU, 59 degrees max on the GPU. Now, when you deal with a budget gaming laptop, especially from Acer, is not known for high-end parts, you can definitely probably expect that this is probably going to run on the bleeding edge. You're wrong. It didn't. Now, I will say this, the fans are a little bit louder than this one. The fans can also be manually adjusted, which I absolutely love through the Acer software. You can actually do that. The fans get about 5,600 RPM, and they never got probably half that under load, but they can get that loud. But they are definitely louder, but they're not even as loud as the Asus TUF A15. That thing was a rocket ship. 77 degrees on the CPU, 56 degrees on the GPU while gaming. I did hit about 81 doing some Blender work, but that was it. Let's get to the conclusion. So I'm glad. I am really glad that you guys really wanted me to review this. My dad was really interested in getting a laptop, and it's funny because his laptop's fine. He just wanted something that didn't score so low in my testing. He kept consistently get upset when he was like, well, how does my computer do in Cinebench and Blender? And I'm like, not great. And I compared to some older laptops that were beating it. So I have to give credit to Acer. There was an issue with the power cord. It wasn't going in all the way when we thought it was DOA, but that is what it is. It wasn't. It was just, we had to push it a little harder. It popped in. Good to go. Battery life, I don't know. Probably not great. It's a 48 watt-hour battery. The power brick is, which power brick is this one? It's probably 170 watts if I had to throw a stab at it here. 135 watts. So when you have it unplugged, it only hits like 2.4 gigahertz on all four, just so you know, by default. Battery life's probably not great. You can probably get a bigger battery in there, and it has a second M.2 slot. The screen is only 60 hertz. I don't know, I think I might have mentioned it earlier. Acer says it's 120. It's not. That being said, because it's an entry-level gaming laptop, I think you'd be better off pushing the higher detail, keep around that 60 FPS mark, maybe some V-Sync, and it should be fine. But, man, to say that you can grab a brand new gaming laptop for a little bit over $700, because I think 16 gigs RAM is required, and be able to play most modern AAA titles in probably medium to high settings at 60 FPS for a brand new laptop, I think is absolutely insane. Coupled with the fact that this also will work perfectly as a mid-range editing laptop. Adobe Premiere doesn't use much more than 16 threads. This has 12. It'll hit in the upper 3. I think I was like all-core boost around 3.6 to 3.8, which is very impressive. It never hit above 49 watts. It was like consistently around 42, so it just didn't get that hot. So I can't recommend this enough. I like my Legion 5. It's louder, no doubt about it. The keys are better. These keys are a little bit on the mushy side, all things considered. It has the extra processing power, has a bigger SSD in it. The screen is more or less the same. This is, I think, 250 nits brightness. It's not 120 hertz. But for me, because I'm editing first, Legion 5 all the way, it's not worth it from a value standpoint, no doubt, because any way you slice it's $230 more, and you're only getting double the SSD, 4 more processing threads, and a better speaker system. But for me, those 4 processing threads is pretty important because I'm, like I said, editing first. So I love my Legion 5. I love this Acer Nitro 5. Both of them are absolutely fantastic laptops. But that's your review. If you have $670, I'm gonna say $710 plus tax to buy a gaming laptop. I wouldn't even look at the used market unless you'd find something real stupid, like a last year $1,500 laptop for like $600. I would buy this in a heartbeat, and that's pretty much it. So if you want to buy this, I'll put some links in the description below. Like the video if you liked it. Dislike, leave a comment, get subscribed, and as always, this is Steve from Big Head Tech, and I'll see you later on down the road.